It was a stormy afternoon and the bustling city streets were drenched in chaos. Sarah, a 23-year-old waitress, hurried through the downpour, her flimsy umbrella barely holding up against the wind. She was late for her shift at a rundown cafe, a place where her dreams of a better life seemed to be slipping further away with every coffee cup she served. The cafe was nearly empty when she arrived, except for a man sitting alone in the corner. He was dressed in a tattered hoodie, his face hidden beneath a baseball cap, and a pair of crutches leaned against his table. Something about his hunched posture made Sarah pause, but the bell on the counter jingled impatiently, snapping her back to reality. "Hey Sarah, tables aren't going to serve themselves," barked her boss. She nodded, quickly tying on her apron and grabbing a tray. As she approached the man's table, she noticed his hands were trembling, his coffee was untouched, and a map was spread out in front of him marked with what looked like desperate scribbles. "Is everything okay, sir?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. He looked up, and for a moment their eyes met. His were deep and weary, a storm of emotion swirling behind him. He hesitated, then spoke in a voice barely above a whisper, "I'm trying to get somewhere, but I think I've lost my way." Sarah glanced at the map. It was clear he wasn't from around here. The address he'd circled was on the outskirts of the city, nearly impossible to reach without a car, and she could tell he didn't have one. "I'm off after my shift," she said impulsively. "I could give you a ride if you'd like." The man's eyes widened in surprise. "You do that for me?" She shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Why not? You look like you could use a break." As the hours passed, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the man's story than he was letting on. When her shift ended, she found him waiting by the door. His crutches clattered slightly as he adjusted himself. "You don't have to do this," he said as she helped him into her beat-up car. "I know," she replied simply. The drive was quiet at first, the only sounds coming from the rain pounding against the windshield. Finally she broke the silence. "So why are you heading to this place?" The man hesitated before answering. "It's complicated. Let's just say it's important." Sarah didn't press him, sensing he wasn't ready to share more, but when they reached the address, a dilapidated building with boarded-up windows, her curiosity got the better of her. "This is it?" she asked, incredulous. "Yes," he said, his tone resolute. "Thank you for bringing me here." He struggled to get out of the car, his movements labored. Sarah instinctively rushed to his side, offering her arm for support. As they approached the building, he suddenly stopped and turned to her. "You've already done so much for me," he said, his voice trembling, "but I need one more favor." "What is it?" she asked, her heart pounding. "Wait here for me," he said. "If I'm not back in 10 minutes, leave no matter what." The tension in the air was palpable as Sarah watched him disappear into the shadows. Minutes felt like hours, and her mind raced with questions. Who was this man? What was he doing in a place like this? And why had he asked her to wait? When 10 minutes passed and he didn't return, Sarah's instinct screamed at her to drive away, but something inside her couldn't leave him behind. Gripping her umbrella tightly, she stepped out of the car and made her way toward the building. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. She followed the faint sound of voices, her heart pounding louder with each step. Peeking around a corner, she saw the man in the hoodie facing a group of rough, ill-looking individuals. They were arguing, their voices growing heated. Suddenly one of the men lunged at him, and Sarah's blood ran cold. Without thinking, she grabbed a broken piece of wood from the floor and charged into the room. "Hey, leave him alone," she shouted, her voice echoing through the empty space. The men turned to her in surprise, but her unexpected courage gave them pause. Sensing the momentary distraction, the man in the hoodie seized the opportunity to grab what looked like a small metallic case from one of the men and bolted toward Sarah. "Ronnie!" yelled. They burst out of the building, the sound of angry shouts and pounding footsteps behind them. Sarah fumbled with her car keys, her hands shaking, but they managed to dive into the car just as the men reached the parking lot. "Go, go," he shouted. The tires screeched as she slammed on the gas, the car fishtailing on the wet pavement. They didn't stop until they were miles away, the city lights a distant blur behind them. Breathing heavily, Sarah turned to the man. What the hell was that? He held up the metallic case, his hands still trembling. "It's a long story." Over the next few hours, the man revealed the truth. His name was Daniel, and he wasn't just some drifter. He had once been a wealthy businessman, but a series of betrayals had left him penniless and disabled. The men they had encountered were former associates who had stolen something priceless from him, even that could restore his name and fortune. "And now you've risked your life for me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Sarah said, though her heart was still racing. "I couldn't just stand by and do nothing." The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of her doorbell. She opened it to find a man in a sharp suit holding a briefcase. "Miss Sarah Bennett?" he asked. "Yes, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Daniel Carter," he said, handing her an envelope. Inside was a check, a staggering amount of money that made her knees weak. "This This is a mistake," she stammered. "I can't accept this." But the lawyer shook his head. "Mr. Carter insists. He says you saved his life and he wants to give you the chance to change yours." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she realized the magnitude of what had happened. In helping a stranger, she had unknowingly altered the course of her own destiny. Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched the check, her mind spinning. The figure written on it was not just enough to pay off for mounting debts, but also enough to start the life she'd only ever dreamed of. Yet beneath the overwhelming gratitude was a twinge of disbelief. She had simply acted on instinct, driven by compassion. How could that warrant such a reward? She looked up at the lawyer, who stood patiently as if anticipating her hesitance. "I don't think I deserve this," she said finally, her voice shaky. "What I did for him wasn't about money. I just wanted to help." The lawyer gave her a small knowing smile. "That's precisely why he's doing this. Daniel doesn't believe in leaving kindness unanswered. If you'd like to discuss this further, I'm happy to arrange a meeting." Sarah nodded, still dazed. "Please, I'd like to see him again." Later that day, the lawyer arranged for a car to pick her up. Sarah had no idea what to expect. The last time she'd seen Daniel, he was battered, vulnerable, and on the run. Now, as the sleek black car pulled up to a towering glass skyscraper in the heart of the city, she felt an uneasy mix of awe and intimidation. The receptionist greeted her warmly and escorted her to a private elevator. As it ascended, Sarah's palms grew clammy. When the door slid open, she stepped into a luxurious office lined with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. "Sarah," a familiar voice called. She turned to see Daniel standing by a massive oak desk. He was unrecognizable. His crutches were gone, replaced by a sleek cane, and he wore a tailored suit that seemed to exude confidence, but his eyes, warm and grateful, were the same as the one she'd seen that stormy night. "You clean up well," she said with a nervous laugh, trying to mask her discomfort. He chuckled, crossing the room to greet her. "Thanks to you, I had the chance to clean up at all." Daniel explained everything over coffee. The evidence Sarah had helped him recover had exposed his former associate's corruption, clearing his name and restoring control of his company. He'd spent the last few weeks rebuilding, but he hadn't forgotten the stranger who had risked her life for him. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," he said. "That check is just the beginning." Sarah shook her head. "Daniel, I don't want to be someone who takes advantage of your kindness. I didn't help you for a reward, I know," he said, his gaze unwavering, "but think of it as an investment. You've proven you're someone who helps others even when it's hard. Imagine what you could do with the resources to make a real difference." His words hung in the air, sinking deep into Sarah's heart. For years she had dreamed of a life where she wasn't just surviving. She wanted to build something meaningful, to lift others out of the struggle she knew all too well. Maybe this was her chance. Over the next few months, Sarah's life transformed in ways she never imagined. She used part of the money to buy a modest apartment, her first real home in years, but the majority of it went into a passion project she had dreamed of for years: a community center for underprivileged youth. The center, named Second Chances, quickly became a safe haven for children and teens in the city. Sarah poured her heart into it, using her own experiences to connect with those who felt forgotten by society. She hired counselors, teachers, and volunteers, ensuring the center offered not just a place to escape but also a path to a better future. Daniel visited often, his presence a reminder of the unexpected bond that had brought them together. Despite his wealth and status, he seemed most at ease when he was at the center, talking to the kids or helping Sarah organize events. One day during a particularly hectic fundraiser, Sarah pulled Daniel aside. "Why are you still helping me?" she asked, her tone curious rather than accusatory. "You've already done more than enough." Daniel smiled, leaning lightly on his cane. "Because helping you helps me. Watching you take this opportunity and turn it into something that changes lives, it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever been part of." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so long thinking of herself as small, insignificant, but now standing beside Daniel and seeing the bustling community center around her, she realized she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was making a difference. Months turned into years, and Sarah's story became a beacon of hope in the city. Second Chances expanded, opening new branches and reaching even more people. Sarah became a symbol of resilience and compassion, her name synonymous with the idea that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple in something life-changing. Daniel remained a steadfast supporter, but their relationship evolved into something deeper. What had begun as a chance encounter became a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. Over time, they grew closer, their shared mission forging a bond that neither had anticipated. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of the community center overlooking a city illuminated by twinkling lights, Daniel turned to Sarah. "Do you ever think about that night we met?" he asked. "Every day," she admitted. "It feels like a lifetime ago. Because of you, it's a lifetime I wouldn't have had," he said, his voice soft. "You didn't just save me, Sarah, you gave me a reason to believe in people again." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And you gave me a reason to believe in myself." As they stood together, the noise of the city fading into The background Sarah realized that the life she had always dreamed of wasn't about the money or the success, it was about the people she had touched and the journey that had led her here, and for the first time she felt truly at peace.